Well, in order to in order to gather the blessings that we can and are able to receive, and in order to steady our minds and put ourselves in the right frame of mind, we always do some sort of opening prayer, which is a prayer to Guru Rinpoche, and he is the Supreme Lama and emanation of Lord Buddha himself, who brought Buddhism to Tibet. I knew him once. This is not a bad joke. I actually did. And then beyond that, to gather together the blessings of the entire lineage. And that's important to do because without the blessings of the lineage to ripen and mature our minds, there really isn't much hope. We have no reason to diverge from our normal samsaric thoughts. We don't have the clarity to understand how we should hold our minds necessarily, or how we should accumulate virtue. And so in order to begin to learn these things, which we must do before we can begin to practice them, we gather together all the blessings of the lineage, which means that we gather together the blessings of all the great lamas that have preceded and made this event possible, in the sense that I received the blessings of my lineage from His Holiness Pena Rinpoche, who recognized and enthroned me, and he, of course, received the blessings of the lineage from his guru, who enthroned him, and all the way back to the original time of the blessing of Migyu Dorje, Kundang Cherab, and the first Ahkon Lhamo. These blessings are unceasing. And all of the lamas and practitioners who are listed in the gathering of our lineage prayers must all be understood to be supreme practitioners, faultless and flawless in their accomplishment. And to put it bluntly, you don't really get your name on a lineage prayer unless you've done a darn good job. And there has to be some realization and some accomplishment. And in that pure way, from accomplished lama to devoted student, who becomes, hopefully, an accomplished lama, that lama would give to their devoted student, and so on and so forth in an unbroken lineage. And that's the importance and the beauty and the purity of having the blessings of one's lineage. You're not just grabbing phenomena from the sky and saying, oh, this is great, I've got this. You're not just reading something in a book with your ordinary discursive mind and saying, oh, this sounds good, I'll take this as truth. Or I like this story, it feels good, so I'll go with that. It's not like that in the Buddha Dharma. It's not that you can't read and enjoy, it's not that you can't have those sorts of feelings. But we come to understand that the purity of the blessing depends on the wisdom of the lineage and the lamas that have preceded. We depend on each other like as though we were climbing stairs or climbing a ladder. With steps missing, you can't go anywhere. And if the bottom step is missing, the root of the accomplishment, there may be steps up there somewhere, but how is that going to help? And so we come to understand that in order to gather together the blessings of the lineage, to gather together the blessings of the lamas, this is really of supreme importance. And so we should try to do so with fervent regard. And so many of you have recited these prayers many times, hopefully every day. And so you are familiar with them. But those of you that have not done this yet, you may find yourselves feeling a little clumsy with the Tibetan words. I know I did it first. I remember trying to read Tibetan prayers and thinking, okay, I'm supposed to be familiar with this. I know I feel familiar with this, but these words are never going to work for me. But gradually, over time, like everything else, you habituate. You're going to habituate one way or the other. Everybody has habits, and in order to remain comfortable, we want to maintain them. Well, this is a new habit. And we shouldn't be afraid of beginning new habits if we know that they will bring an excellent result. You two know each other? Huh? For 2 days now. Oh, interesting. It's amazing how karma ripens. Yeah. It's an amazing thing from my point of view to see people come together who think they have no connection. And they think they're in the same room for no apparent reason. And they think, why do I hang out with these people? And it comes to my knowledge, I mean, I have a different perspective, and I know that these people have seen each other so many times before, that they know each other so very well, and that the very issues that they're working out today are an exact reflections of ones that they've worked out yesterday. Not, literally speaking, but in another lifetime. And it's always funny to watch people, this is just in a little side from the teaching we're having tonight. Like my own students will come and they'll say, me and this other student are having this problem. And what else is new? Because you people had this problem the last time. And probably the time before that. And so, that my new philosophy, when I see people who have known each other for a long time, and yours is a good connection, I'm not making an example of yours so much, but when you find that you knock heads together, you just have to look in the mirror and see that this is something that's a reflection of an old issue. And you have to learn to love each other, to tolerate each other, to care for one another, to feed and nurture one another. And that's what has to happen. Because if not, you get to come back in the future in the same room with the same questions and the same issues. So it's wonderful that we have these opportunities to practice together. And as vow takers, those that are practicing the Buddha Dharma and have absorbed the Buddha Dharma under the family of our lineage, and then under the tutoring or even parenting in many cases of our root gurus, we find that we bad children are all together in the same room again, and we have the happy adventure of learning how to love and to have compassion one more time. So it's great. It's great to see you. It's funny to watch you. And it's hard not to roll my eyes just once in a while. So you'll have to forgive me if you see that once in a while. Well, tonight, I would like to talk about a subject that ultimately is Dzogchen, which means completion stage practice. It is nearly impossible to understand a Dzogchen teaching without any previous experience in practice. So you must ask yourself, why in the world are you going to talk about it then? Because it's like showing a delicious banquet with many nutritious foods and many things that are so good for us that they just make us grow. And these delicious foods are beautiful to see. They are beautifully arranged and they are perfect in every way, and these beautiful foods are flawless. But it's like showing a banquet of that caliber to a 2-year-old. And I don't mean that unkindly. 2-year-olds grow up to be adults, eventually. But you show a banquet like that to a 2-year-old, and they're liable to want to start a food fight, or, a food fight where we throw things at each other. Or they're liable to look at the colors. Or maybe if they do partake of some of the food because they have some instruction, maybe the minimal instruction, They might not know what's best for them. They might think, oh, what's best for me is the chocolate dessert. They might think, that's really all I need. A 2-year-old would say, you know, if I just had that, I'd be happy. They don't have the training. And even if they did have some training and their mother told them, eat that green vegetable, eat that yellow vegetable, have a little protein, have a little carbohydrate. Even if they know those basic things, as a 2-year-old, they might not actually have the physical capability of digesting them if there's no familiarity, because we learn to digest in the same way as we learn to assimilate knowledge. So it is not uncommon for lamas to go to places that they've never been before, to meet students that they haven't had a connection with in this lifetime. And of course, because karma always prevails, they end up meeting students with whom they have a profound connection that simply hasn't ripened yet, but will with any good luck in this lifetime. So the lamas will give some Dzogchen teaching. Even though there's been no ngundro, which is our preliminary practice, even though there's been no real intellectual discourse that would help to understand or to give us some of the steps that we need to get to a certain place of understanding, still they might reveal this amazing banquet. And of course, we act like 2-year-olds if we don't have the experience. Some of us look at the banquet and the first thing we do is get wrapped up in our minds. And instead of experiencing some kind of Dzogchen view, we think, I've got to ask questions now. I've got to know what's this and what's this, what's this. And I have to hear how smart I am in responding to this Dzogchen banquet. Because we haven't really gone through the steps that bring us to a place of wisdom, we might react in that way. We might say, this is the best route. Let me just grab some facts here, you know. But that would be like diving under the table and eating the crumbs. When you have this fabulous banquet, that if you only had a little patience, you could maybe actually learn not only to understand, but to have all of, to be completely nourished by, and to have it really help you grow stronger and greater. So if we have that patience, then maybe we can take that feast and make it something usable. So I would like to do a little bit of that. I'd like to present. I'm not claiming it's a huge feast. I'm not claiming it's the best thing you've ever eaten. Well, let me rephrase that. Maybe the best thing you've ever eaten. But you might not know it yet. But I'd like to offer some of that. The good things that come from such an offering are that there's a little hook in them. Because once you taste something delicious, you think, oh, this is for me. You know, like potato chips, I can only eat one. I can't just only eat one, rather. I've got to have more. So if I eat this food, I'm going to want some more of that. That was tasty. So there's that little hook. Or you might hear something that nourishes you in some way, answers some question, rings a bell. Sometimes it rings a bell and you don't know why, and it drives you a little crazy. Now, why do I know that? Why does that feel right? What's going on here? And that's because you have some blessing that is brought forth simply by the opportunity to be at this banquet with one's guru. That blessing from the past, that connection from the past, maybe some practice from the past, comes forward. Which is good, because in our ordinary activity where we're just doing ordinary things, it's 50-50 what kind of karma we're ripening. You know, if you have a day where you're very kind to everybody in your job and you remember to pray for sentient beings or to in some way hope that everything that you do is dedicated to benefiting sentient beings, there's an element of virtue or kindness there. That's a great day, and that'll set you up for more great days, because that's how cause and effect works. But if, on the other hand, you have a really pissy day at work, and how many times have you gone to a shop at the end of the day and you're seeing the person behind the counter ready to sock somebody or ready to go home, clearly ready to go home? We all have days like that, and maybe you've had a really crappy day at work, forgive my language, and it's just bad. Every interaction was bad. You didn't like anybody you met, it was bad. And so, of course, it was bad. You didn't have good thoughts. You had bad thoughts. And of course, the bad thoughts are always reactionary, and having that reactionary status in one's mind tends to ripen more inflammatory reactions. And so it sets you up for some more bad experiences, because that's how cause and effect works. But the great thing about sitting here in a Dharma experience, in this room, with good hope, thinking, this is my wish. I wish to open to this wisdom. I wish to move into a state of recognition. I wish to accomplish something here. And why? Because I have hopes that somehow I will be able to benefit others, to be a light somehow for others, or to dispel the darkness in some way. And so that's our hope. And that opens up the way for more hope-fulfilling experiences. It's hard to realize this. It's hard to realize this because of what we are. Not who we are, but what we are. When we obsess about who we are, and whether people know us very well or not, whether we're getting our unique and individual character across, we're spending a lot of time worrying, kind of like, which apple on the tree are we? You're an apple. What does it matter? If you're the one on the left side of the tree, or the right side of the tree, top of the tree, or the bottom, what's the difference? You're an apple. So, when we spend so much time on our own individual needs and our own individual wants, and our own individual urge for approval, or urge to be identified, or urge to be recognized in some way, well, guess what we do? We open up the way for more of that. Not more recognition, more need for recognition, more need to be known as that unique, fabulous apple that grew in the front, slightly right of the center, above the middle. Kind of like that. And actually, we end up wasting this precious human rebirth in silly concerns that, if you knew what you were, would be like water off a duck's back. Just nothing. Just absolutely nothing. So let's go back to trying to understand something of our primordial nature, and how cause and effect all comes into that. How it develops, or it comes to be, that we are in this place perceiving ourselves as separate beings, locked in a time and space grid, having the ability to progress only in certain ways, all of them aging through that time and space grid. All of these concepts and ideas that we have are unique, it's true. They are unique, and each one of you has a slightly unique flavor of concepts and predetermined ideas, patterns, habitual tendencies. We all have that, because we were born under certain conditions, in certain cultures. Each of us was raised with certain kinds of input. We have everything from cable news to billboards, and we have parents, and we have all of that stuff that teaches us in a certain way. And due to our habitual tendency, not only from one lifetime, but being born again and again and again, Lord Buddha teaches us that if you go to a psychic and the psychic says you've spent 10 lives, or 20 lives, or 100 lives, or 1,000 lives, then that psychic doesn't know what they're talking about. Because we have been incarnating and going around the wheel of samsaric death and rebirth since time out of mind. Inconceivable time. To the degree that I can tell you for certain, every being that you see in this room has been your mother in some previous life. Every being in this room has been your father in some previous life. Otherwise, we probably could not sit here under these auspicious conditions, learning Dharma together. But none of us know that. It's like we are dreaming. So many different levels of dreaming. But this one's really solid. Sometimes when you're dreaming, some people recognize that they're dreaming. They might have a dream and they might say, oh yeah, I remember the last dream I had, I was in this place before. Funny things happen in dreams. Or some funny thing will happen, like you were in one place in a dream and then you're in another place, but you know it's okay because you were dreaming. So there are many different levels of dreams. Each level of dreaming is not so different, really, from the experience that we're having while we're awake. Except that since the time of our birth, and from endless habitual patterns that we have accumulated since time out of mind, we have been taught that this particular dream occurs in a certain way, that it's very solid. And we were taught many concepts about this dream. We were taught that these concepts are the way to go. In a way, ignorance or lack of awareness or recognition is passed down from parent to child. Or so it seems. But it's actually the very manifestation of our own habitual tendencies from past lives. Lord Buddha himself, none other than Lord Buddha, taught that if you want to see what your past lives were all about, don't waste your money on going to the, corner store, palm reader, or whatever. Oh, you could if you want to, but Lord Buddha said, there's a better way. There's a better way to know exactly where you were and what got you here. And that is to look in the mirror. To be unflinchingly honest with what you see. Not only physical, But let's look at your emotional patterns, your habitual tendencies, and the seemingly external karma that seems to happen to you. Things happen to you, right? They seem to happen to you. Everything that you see, if you study it carefully, tells you about your own habitual tendencies. Everything. If you have chronic problems with money, this is not a new issue. If you have chronic problems with, I don't know, let's see, lying, this is not a new problem. If you have chronic problems with getting along with people, this is not a new problem. And if you have good things going on as well, if you have the ability to simply make money, just pull it out of the ethers, and prosperity is not hard for you, assuming you don't hurt anybody to do it, then you have to know that that's not new for you. You have to know that something that you did in the past has ripened some opportunities or some openings or brought forth some kind of karmic ripening, if you will, or a karmic bubble that comes to the surface of your personal mind stream. And that karmic bubble has ripened. Where has it come from? It hasn't come from outside. It has come from one's own past actions, past thoughts, and past habitual tendencies. Now finally, for once and for all, we have to leave the good and bad out of this. When we look in the mirror and study the path that we have traveled, where we are now with unflinching self-honesty, and therefore enable ourselves to figure out where we want to go and how we want to get there spiritually, in order to do that, we have to take the good and bad out of it. The good boy, good girl, bad girl. That is a cop-out, a waste of time. It is a non-issue. Because we have to develop, in order to really go forward in a healthy and non-neurotic way, with clear view and clear judgment, we have to say to ourselves, this is the path that brought me here. These are the changes that are required, and that's the path that I'm going on. It can't be where you look at yourself and say, oh, I'm not pretty, so therefore I must have been a schmuck in my last life. Or wait, let me look in the book. The book says, I am not pretty in this lifetime because I did not keep vows, physical vows, in the past. Ah. You know, and that's just such a bummer, because my whole life I wanted to be pretty. I mean, that's the kind of crazy, neurotic thing that we do, and it's wasteful. It's wasteful, it's silly, it's not your best. You can do better than that. Maybe the way to go then is to say, you look in the mirror and you go, well, all right, I'm not like twisted or anything, but I'm not so pretty. So let me think. I would like to accumulate the causes to create that kind of body virtue with my body. that results in beauty. Because I hate to tell you this, it's not Estee Lauder. I've been using those products for years. I was hoping, I was pretty sure she was the incarnation of Nefertiti. But so many people are, you know. Anywho, you might think to yourself, well, no, this thing about being beautiful, now there's something to that. I would like that beauty is a virtue. Now I come to understand, through having been taught, that beauty is a virtue. So how am I going to create that virtue? Well, I am going to commit myself to practicing virtue with my body. If I make a vow, whether it's a vow to keep my robes, or a vow in marriage, or a vow in spending so much time physically every week or every day or whatever, benefiting others, or a vow not to kill, to never kill, to prevent killing, to take those little bugs outside rather than squishing them, to do everything you can to prevent the death of innocent others. For instance, we in Buddhism have these crazy habits. You'll see this every now and then, buying up like bait fish. Bait fish. Bunch of Buddhists running around. You can see this picture, can't you? In our robes, buying bait fish. And then we all carry it over to the water, and we let them all go. And we say prayers that giving them their lives back will bring some benefit of long life, of virtuous body karma, of beauty, peace, prosperity, whatever, to all sentient beings. That may sound like a crazy, childlike practice, but this is what the Buddha has taught. And from the looks of us, none of us has figured out any other answers. If there's any beauty queens in here, please don't be mad at me. So we examine and we look at ourselves and we find out how it is that we have come to this point. And here we are, we're learning that a lot of it is about past habitual tendencies, past actions, past things that we have done, conditions that we have created that are ripening now in this present time. And we learn. Without wasting time on self-judgment or stupid neurotic thoughts like, maybe I should hide my face so people won't know. Or whatever craziness that we do, because we do craziness. Instead, we should think to ourselves, this physical virtue, this is something. I would like to have that. I would like to express that. I would like to receive that gift. And I would love to be able to teach others how to have a healthy and beautiful body. So now I'd like to learn the method. And that's when you start practicing. You start practicing to change your habitual tendencies. So most people, when they come to Dharma, they think, oh, I'm going to hear cool stuff, great stuff. But then when you tell them that something's got to give, that they've got to change, that's when they start backing out the room. Because nobody wants to change. It's hard work. To change our habitual tendencies, well, that's the hardest thing at all. Of all. And what does it mean? Do we have to like take everything good out of our lives? Those are the kinds of silly games that we play. So now let's look at it from a different point of view, from a wisdom point of view. And it makes you see how silly all those thoughts can be, how really silly they are. Because if we understood the nature that is our nature, we would understand that it is essentially empty. Not empty like the cold, dark void of space, which, by the way, they're beginning to discover is not exactly dark, empty space. But that's another story. If we understand our nature, it is empty. Empty means what? Does it mean that nothing exists? No. Does it mean that nothing is happening? No. No. We know something is happening because if I stick a pin in your arm, you're going to feel it. And if anyone would like to test that, I will find a pin. But that's true. We can't deny it. You can't, in a healthy or sane way, say, everything is cool, everything is empty, nothing is happening. That's not Dzogchen, that's insanity. The nature that is our nature is essentially empty. Empty means what? I don't have this on? What does it mean? It means empty of contrivance, empty of conceptualization, empty of notion. Notion, those things that fill your head. Does that emptiness contain nothing? No. Does that emptiness wrap itself around something somehow? No. This is the primordial, pristine luminosity that is the Buddha seed, that is your love. Primordial, pristine, uncontrived luminosity. Shape, form, event, these are contrivances. How do they occur? If everything's empty, how do they occur? They occur because this emptiness, although unborn, unshaped, uncontrived, is also the nature, the underpinning, the ultimate reality that is the essence of everything you see and are. It's a little bit different when we're talking about sentient beings and inanimate objects, although both are empty of self-nature. Empty of self-nature. That you are Buddha, there is no doubt. If there were doubt, I would never teach you. because there would be no point. And because when I speak to you, I speak to you so that you can wake up. Do I speak to your habitual tendencies and contrivances and neurotic personality? I try not to. Those of you that know me know. I try not to. But I speak to you. Each and every sentient being is a sentient being because they are sentient. Our nature is luminosity. Unborn and yet spontaneously complete. Finished. Unborn and yet perfectly accomplished. That is our nature. Even the great saint, or who became a saint, Milarepa, before he was a great saint, he was a magician and a murderer. You would think that he would have destroyed whatever pure luminosity that was his nature. You'd think, if anything would have done it, murdering people would. And yet, this primordial, pristine nature is undefiled in every one of us. How many times have I seen you give up hope? How many times have I seen you stop practicing because, what the hell? How many times have I seen you do things that really are about self-loathing and interact in ways in which you do not honor those closest to you? And that is because we are in such a profound state of non-recognition that essentially that primordial, pristine luminosity that is exquisitely accomplished and yet beginning is endless. That part of you, I can't say part of you really, because there is no separation between the parts, but that nature is dulled over by gross defilements that are in their essence only habitual tendencies. All right, think about this. How many of you love cats? Don't you just love cats? They are so beautiful. I have 3 beautiful cats. I have dogs, parrots, and everything. But cats are beautiful. But you know why they get to be cats? Because they're killers. They are born into a form which has, you ever seen what cats do when they look at a bird? Their eyes get like that, you know. And they go into some kind of weird zone, you know. And then even their little jaws go. I mean, it's just like nothing you've ever seen. And what's happening there? Well, that poor cat is not even making a choice. He is in a karmic situation. Karma has ripened in such a way that through past actions, habitual killing, he's a cat. And that's what cats do. It doesn't make him less lovable. It doesn't make his fluffy little tail any cuter. It doesn't make him rub up against your leg and sleep on your feet any less. He still loves you and you still love him. He's your cat. And he is Buddha too. And someday, through connection with you maybe, or a connection with the path in some fashion, that cat will be a human and it will have time to practice. Is it a bad cat because it was born a killer? Or is it a good cat because it's fluffy? You see where I'm going with this? That's how we do with ourselves. And we forget, I mean, I'm making light of it, but really, what have we forgotten? We are asleep. Asleep to this pristine nature, this uncontrived nature. Somehow, because this pure, uncontrived luminosity, listen up, because this pure, uncontrived luminosity has within it all unborn potential. Wow. All unborn potential. To be Buddha, or to actualize its potential in any way, even by conceptualizing and formulating habitual tendencies. Why has this happened? Because it can. Is there some kind of crazy Adam and Eve story going on here where somebody made us eat that apple? Or the snake got us? Or something? Not according to our view. Not according to what the Buddha has taught. Nothing external happened to us to put us in this place where we are revolving around cyclic existence, seemingly helplessly, like bees in a jar, as the saying goes, because we can't really predict our own death. We have no way of knowing how long our precious lifespan will be. When we are young, we have no way of knowing whether we'll have all the children we want, or whether we'll have all the accumulated wealth that we want, or anything like that. So we hope for the best. We don't even know if we're ever going to get that piece of property we've always wanted. That house on the hill, We don't know. We hope for the best. And so hope and fear are the mainstay, meat and potatoes of our lives. We hope we can get it, we fear we won't. And yet what's changed? Why has this happened? Because in the extraordinary, spontaneously complete, and yet unborn, primordial luminosity that is your nature, it can. The force of karma is strong because you believe it. Now that's really funny because most people don't believe in karma. They think, oh, I've been, taught a different religion. I'm not really believing in karma. So why is that happening to me? How can you say that? Well, cause and effect relationships are evident in this phenomenal reality, aren't they? Like, if I throw this rice, it's going to go down. None of it went up. Because that's our expectation. Through time out of mind, of incarnating in a different way, and through the experiences of this lifetime, there are certain set rules that we all seem to abide by. And actually, those rules are more about the sufferings that occur in the 6 realms of cyclic existence. Each of them has a particular format. Like, for instance, the realms of animals. Their predominant suffering is fear. They have been taught since the beginning of their lives, and their particular kingdom has been such since time out of mind that there's always the expectation of fear. The big animal gets the little animal. The little animal finds somebody smaller. Like the Buddha taught. Even now, it's to the point where we use animals for food and for work. And so, of course, the suffering of animals is in one way. The suffering of humans is in another way. We have old age, sickness, and death. No one gets away without it. Unless you die young suddenly before you've ever gotten sick, but that's death. These are the rules of the road, so to speak. And why is that? Once again, because we are constantly and continually ripening cause and effect relationships since time out of mind, and we carry them with us in something like a bubble that seems to be separate. The fabric of reality seems to be separate, and we seem to be here and there, separate. These are the rules of the road because these are the conditions, the cause and effect relationships, the contrivances and conceptualizations that have proliferated in this luminous nature because they can. Then you have to ask yourself, well, if it's that simple, I've only been doing this because I can, and it's only just habit, why don't I just change my habit? Yeah, why don't you? But see, everybody gets scared when we get to this part of the talk. And because change is frightening. That's a habit too. Because we have so many contrivances and so many conceptualizations, we are reduced in a way to being a bundle of concepts that are manifested like grasping aggregates. Even the way we look, the way we are, the way we appear is a testimony to that. How do you perceive your world? Your eyes, sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing. It's all coming from the outside, you know? You feel something else. You see something else. You touch something. Oh, you can touch yourself too, but you touch something else. All of our sensory mechanisms are meant to tell us once again that it's all about contrivances and conceptualizations. And we're so deep in the myth, so deeply into it, that really all we can sense are our own gross external senses. Sure, we meditate sometimes, or we go to the vortexes. You know, whatever. We go on the Pink Jeep tour, you know, whatever. And we sit and we have an experience. You know what? I hate to break this to you, but those experiences that you're having are just like an inner movie or film that was made with the same senses that you look outward with. Like when you have an experience, you feel it with those senses. It may be a slightly more subtle version of them, but you feel it with those senses. It's a visual sense, it's an auditory sense, it's a feeling sense, a touching, an inner feeling kind of sense. But it's that same kind of thing. And so layer upon layer upon layer are all these contrivances and habitual tendencies. It's very difficult because our consciousness is created due to the fact that we have had these habitual tendencies from before this lifetime. So we come into this lifetime basically set up to not be able to perceive anything other than with our senses. We're already equipped to be deluded. We come into this life born with eyes, nose, mouth, all of it ready to perceive our world. And then what's the first thing our parent teaches us? When you're holding a baby, look in my eyes. This is where I am. We teach baby funny little things like that because that's what we believe. And yet we are this primordial nature, this uncontrived luminosity. How is this possible? How does one ever come to understand?